For the first two lessons in this course, the only thing that you'll need is the Google Chrome web browser. If you don't already have it, you can go to google.com/chrome/browser/desktop to get started. Once you have Chrome installed, you can come back to this page where you're watching this course to get started. If you already have it, you don't need to do anything, just stay here. For these first two episodes, we're going to be working inside of Chrome's developer tools, and I'm going to go over to getbootstrap.com. It really doesn't matter which site you're working on, it just needs to have jQuery installed for our purposes. And I'm going to be here because I like a lot of their elements that we can play with as we go. The first thing that we want to do is open up the developer tools in Chrome. To do that, you can right click or control click if you're on Mac, click inspect element, and it opens up the developer tools. Another way that you do it, which you'll see me do or not see me do over and over, is I always hit Command Option I to open this up. And normally it will open up directly inside of this Elements tab. This shows you basically all of the HTML various things in the page. Also, one quick thing, you can pop this window around from the bottom to the side, however you like it based on this. I'm going to keep it here so that we can see what's going on the left and right side pretty easily. What we care about for our purposes is this console, which you can get to by clicking these arrows if it's hidden. If you're in the landscape view, it's probably just here. Anyway, this is where we want to be right now. If you've never seen this before, I'm going to give you a quick explanation of what you're looking at. Basically, this is the JavaScript console. JavaScript is a programming language that runs in the browser, and in this console you can type in essentially any JavaScript and it will run, be executed in the browser, and if you deal with any of the page items on the left that we're looking at, you can manipulate things, you can do all sorts of interesting things, and it's a really great way to get a quick look at what's going on behind the scenes. To kick things off, let's run through the basic data types that we can use in JavaScript. First off, we have numbers. If we type any number in, it will be returned back to us. We can add numbers together, like essentially a calculator. Subtract, divide, all the basic stuff. Clear is a function when you want to clear the screen. After numbers, we have strings, which is just text. We can add strings together, which is called concatenation. We also have this concept of true and false. And basically, we can check to see if something is true and then take some kind of action after that. So we could do if true, if true. To go to a new line in the console, you have to hit Shift Enter. If true, and then we'll just say, hey, and so it prints it out. We could do if false, and it doesn't give us anything back. This is not meant to be extensive, and I'll probably screw some things up along the way. This is just a really fast overview. So a more useful thing than just saying if true is to actually check and see if something is true. So you might say if 2 equals 1 plus 1, and it does, obviously. And equals is an operator to check and see if two things are in fact equal to each other. If you said this with just an equal sign, it's going to give you an error because you're trying to assign something. So if you see one equal sign, it's assignment. If you see two equal signs, you're checking to see if they are in fact equal. Also, you have this thing called not equal, which is an exclamation point, and that's to check if they are not equal. And in this case, they actually are equal, so it's not going to print anything out, or return anything rather. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is called an array. Now, an array is a collection. It's initialized by two square brackets. You can pass basically any of the things we've been looking at into it. So you can do numbers, You could do strings and numbers. You could do strings and numbers and booleans. You could do strings and numbers and booleans and other arrays. You could do pretty much anything. Okay, so the last data type that we're going to look at is called an object, and we're going to look at this really quick and then go on to some more interesting things. But you initialize a new object by using curly braces. We can set it equal to really get interesting with this, we need to set this equal to a variable, so we'll call this one Bob. And this gets into a new topic, which is assigning things to variables. So basically you call var, which is short for variable obviously, and then you can assign anything on the left side to any of the things we've looked at so far. So you could do var array equals this, and now array, when you type it in, will give you that back. But let's look at Bob, because Bob is kind of interesting. So when we type in Bob, we get this thing called an object back. Now, what's cool about this is that we can store stuff in it. So if we say Bob.firstName equals Bob, Bob.lastName equals Smith, and then if we look back at the Bob object that we created, you'll see that we have stored named things inside of it. And we can query these by saying Bob.firstName. And you can see that in the console, it's actually populating this for us already, which is really cool. Another really cool thing is, so we can actually store, like, we could do another object inside of it. We could say Bob.pets equals, and now we have Bob. And you see we have first name, last name, and pets, which is an object. So if I do bob.pets.cat equals Sam, now if I look at Bob, I have the same exact thing I had before, but if I say bob.pets, it's another object with another thing inside it, which is the cat, and then I can say bob.pets.cat. And so it's just this cool way to store things. The next thing that we need to talk about really quick is functions. So a function is a way to store some kind of logic and reuse it. So for example, in JavaScript, the notation looks like function, and then you give it the name that you want to call it. So let's create one called add. Then you need to pass in the arguments. So what do you expect to pass in, which I'll explain a little bit more in a second. You have to give it curly braces, split these up. Remember that's shift enter to enter down like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to return a plus b. So what this means is that this function add is going to expect two things, which are numbers, and then we're going to try to add these things together. So we can do add 3, 4, and we should get 7 back, which obviously we do. Now what's interesting, and we won't get deep off into this, but this is kind of cool, is like you could do hello. And because this plus sign knows how to concatenate different strings like we talked about, it'll work just fine for that too. Now that's a whole nother topic, but that's interesting. So let's go back to our object example. So let's see if we still have Bob around. Yes, we do. Okay, so what's cool about objects is we can actually store functions in them too. So check this out. So we can do bob.sayHi equals function and then we'll just return hello Bob. Now I can say bob.sayHi. And when you call a function, you have to give it the parentheses on the end, and if there are arguments required, you have to give those too. So we could redefine bob.sayHi and say name. So he's going to say hi to somebody else this time. And plus, and then name. And then we'll say bob.sayHi Jim. And Bob says hi to Jim. So now it's time to stop and ask the question, why in the world have we been racing through all these things like maniacs? So let's clear the screen back. What I want to dive into is there are a lot of built-in things which are really useful when you're working within the context of a browser. Like everything that we've done so far right now is independent of a browser. It's just working with the programming language. But like if you're in Chrome, which you should be, if you just start typing, just type the letter A and look down, and there's stuff. If you like B, there's stuff. C, everything, there's loads and loads of built-in things. And what I want to do for the rest of this is start kind of looking under the cover at things we can do within the context of the browser, because that's really what we're going to be doing with JavaScript.